Okay, we're back for, what is this, part two? This is part two of July board with Neal Berlin, who's really made it fun for me to do these, because I used to have to just watch these myself and babble to myself on the screen. Now I have Neal. So welcome back, Neal. Are you ready to go, or do you want any more comments from the last episode?
I had one thing that struck me, especially perusing on Facebook. These are these lip sync challenges to all the police departments across the country. I don't know whether you've been seeing any of them. I came up with a new challenge. It's called the Wheelchair Challenge to managers and board of directors, that for at least 2 days they sit themselves in a wheelchair, use public transportation, and try to get to everywhere.
Oh my God!
Don't clear their calendar out like that. Just for this special event. Oh no! Let's see how you do. And I don't mean just the board of directors and management. I mean schedule writers on down. And I bet you it'll be a eye-opening experience.
Yeah. I would be happy if they just committed to being public transportation dependent for 1 month out of their life. And where they just had to use public transportation and only public transportation for a month.
Look, 2 days to begin with would be, more than enough for them.
Yeah, but they're not going to ever do that one. That's a great challenge, man. That would really be a lesson. People should do. Somebody should do that and write a book.
And years ago, under the I forgot which presidency, there were many congressmen and local state representatives and governors taking the challenge of trying to live a week on or a month on food stamps. In the same vein.
Yeah. I mean, to experience what real people have to experience, and that's not how our country operates. You know that. They're never going to do that. They're never going to ride. They're going to support this continued neoliberal agenda of funneling money to the elites of Portland without concern for the riders, because that's how it functions everywhere. Let's not pick on Trimet alone. The public transportation system, from my point of view, is a cash cow for the technocracy and the elites. And meanwhile, the operators and the riders suffer endless inhumanities. And nobody will take that challenge of yours. And nobody will take the challenge of even committing to public transportation only for a month or a week. No. So. Well,
Doug the Desk couldn't do it because he's probably attending every operator's backyard barbecue.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. I wonder what his day looks like. I've often wondered what the day in the life of a general manager is. Let's follow him around for a month and see what it is. And you know what it's going to be, of course. It's going to be aristocracy. That's what it's going to be. Okay, he runs around as some kind of aristocrat, and that's what it is. Okay, I know that for a fact.
Okay, let's roll them.
Roll them.
You find a way to get to work. So, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for your attention. Appreciate it. All right, next two are Justin Norton.
What?
That was a for thank you testimony.
Yeah, for thank you.
Kurtzen with Portland Jobs with Justice, and Joanna Brenner.
This is where they're going to start hammering on the lift, and this gets no publicity outside of us, and none, zero. It's completely ignored by the mainstream. Nobody really.
It got PR when they had cell phone video of operators relieving themselves.
Yeah, right, exactly. That's another example of the kind of manipulation of people's minds that the mainstream media does. Meanwhile, what we're going to see here is completely ignored. So, I mean, I know I go on and I read. I understand the way the government really is a predatory disease on us, and you can see many examples of this, and you can see examples of it right here at Trimet too.
Good morning. Thank you for your time. I'm here to talk a little bit more and give some background information on the Workers' Rights Board hearing that Orlando spoke about earlier here. So again, I'm from Portland Jobs with Justice, which is a coalition of over 100 labor, community, faith, and student organizations that work together and take action together for workers' rights and economic justice. Part of that work is done through our Portland Area Workers' Rights Board, which offers working people a public community forum where they can bring their complaints against employers.
Whoops, sorry about that.
Violating their human and legal rights in the workplace. This board's made up of dozens of members who represent a broad spectrum of political, faith, academic, legal, and community leaders who have the ability to intervene with employers and the public to help resolve situations that threaten workers' rights. So paratransit issues and Lyft service specifically really came onto our radar last year in the fall of 2017 when the story hit the news about a Lyft driver who was fired for using the bathroom in a parking lot. We began to talk with drivers, with the folks at Amalgamated Transit Union 757, with riders, and the stories that we heard were truly...
Yeah, let me just stop it there because I can show you a picture of that story easily because it's on my famous collection of Jeff Roberts. Can you see that? There he is. That's the guy. Wait a minute. That's not the guy. That's the
guy who.
That's the other guy. Here it is. Yeah, that's the one that got. There it is, right there. That's the famous picture here. Of and of course they were. It's not a guy. Number one. And she's not taking a dump, number two. So the media got the story completely wrong. And we're not going to listen to it, but just...
Well, they had a 50-50 on that story.
50-50? Yeah.
Appalling to us. So on May 17, a panel of 5 of our Workers' Rights Board members heard testimony on labor and human rights violations in Portland's Lyft paratransit service, which, as you know, for the past decade...
The testimony that's coming up, whether they invited anyone from Trimet to at least be present. They didn't have to testify, but how would you guys like to sit in?
Yeah, I wonder. I don't remember hearing that.
Decade has been contracted out to the multinational for-profit corporation First Transit.
Yeah, now that's more evidence for my argument that the Trimet taxpayer funds are going to multinational corporations, and the multinational corporations, they're all run by the elites, okay? So they're going to take off a whole bunch of profit off the top of that for the elites of the world, and you can see that dynamic functioning here, right here, because what the hell are they doing contracting with them? Okay, there's only one reason: neoliberalism.
The members of the panel at that hearing included Johanna Brenner, who chaired the panel and is a professor emerita of Portland State University, where she taught sociology and women's studies and served as the chair of the Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies Department. Oregon State Senator Michael Dembrow, who represents Northeast and Southeast Portland in the Oregon State Senate, and who currently used to chair the Workforce Committee and currently chairs the Environment and Natural Resources Committee. Barbara J. Diamond, who's a labor and civil rights attorney here in Portland, who herself identifies as a person with a disability. Reverend Cecil Charles Prescott, who you'll hear from a little bit later as well, who serves as Minister of Faith Formation at the Ainsworth United Church of Christ here in Portland, or over in Portland. And Orlando Lopez, who you already heard from, who's a community leader with Opal Environmental Justice. So that panel of Workers' Rights Board members heard testimony from both drivers and riders with disabilities, from an advocate from Elders in Action who works with hundreds of seniors and riders with disabilities as well, and from other people with disabilities at the hearing and outside of the hearing who, as Orlando said, requested a follow-up event to provide additional testimony on their experiences with Lyft service. So we published a report last week on that hearing. We presented the report to the Committee on Accessible Transportation last week. I have copies here for you today that I'll hand over. And then Johanna and Reverend Cecil Prescott and some others are going to dive a little bit more into the hearing and the recommendations that were made. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right on the 3-minute mark.
Hi. I would first thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you today.
I don't like it when they thank them for letting them speak. Okay, I don't like that. They don't need to be thanked for following the rules. Okay, what they need to be is criticized for being phonies.
The drivers and riders who came forward to testify at our hearing showed remarkable courage, patience, and restraint. The drivers clearly care about the elderly and disabled people they serve, and the riders told truly heartbreaking stories about the hoops they are forced to jump through to be certified as paratransit users and the many difficulties they experience as paratransit riders. Honestly, we were really shocked by this testimony, and we struggled to understand how it could be that Trimet has allowed First Transit to deliver such abysmal service for such a long time. Let me highlight just a few of the gross violations of basic labor and human rights.
Yeah, it reminds me of one of my favorite scenes from Casablanca, where Humphrey Bogart, Rick, walks in with Claude Rains and Claude Rains blows his whistle, and his gendarmes pour in, and he screams, "Oh my God, gambling is going on here. I'm shocked. And the bartender comes over to him, to the police captain, Claude Rains, and said, "Monsieur, your winnings."
Yeah. It's great. Man.
You could play this scene right here.
Yeah.
Rights that are regularly practiced by First Transit. It is common for riders to be stuck on buses for hours at a time. Bathroom.
Just so you know, I can independently verify that because I listen to the calls, and that's happens very often. So she's not making that up. They're stuck for 2 hours or on those buses, which is completely inhumane.
Accidents.
Why are they stuck for 2 hours?
Because they do these. They have these. They call them manifests. Okay, and the manifest is basically a diary of what rides they're going to perform that day. So they have to go get all these rides, and what they do is they pick another rider up before drop the one they got on board home. So I mean that time can stretch out depending on how they've scheduled all those rides. That's what happens.
So in other words, it's a milk run till you get to your destination.
Yeah. You're just sightseeing, really. I mean, he's picking up all these people, and they're not. They're supposed to be in a decent order, but from what I hear on the scanner, it's a lot of that is just not working.
I'll digress even further. When you and I started, Al, and that's many years ago at Trimet, there was no lift. And if you recall, all these services were provided by private entrepreneurs who had their own vans and cars.
Right. That's right.
And I don't recall the issue, but the issue was, I don't know whether it was a federal mandate or what came out, but all those people were essentially put out of business and lost their livelihood, and now it was Trimet Lift.
And it was contracted out. I think it was Laidlaw, wasn't it? Was the first?
It was essentially. It actually went through 2 or 3 different other contractors, and there's 3 different regions. Plus, the training department was contracted out. Plus, the dispatch was and eventually, First Transit essentially bid and got all of it.
I see.
So there was, I think, at one time a group called Dave's. I mean, it went through quite a few contortions. but it was always called Trimet Lift.
Yeah.
These conditions are an assault on disabled people's dignity. And on top of this, in a number of locations, drivers do not have appropriate equipment for cleaning up the mess. Operators are often scheduled to take breaks at the very beginning of their shift or right at the end. An operator could drive 5 or 6 hours with no opportunity to use the restroom. In order to make it through, some wear adult diapers. Soiling oneself is not uncommon, as Justin mentioned. Drivers experience high levels of kidney, bladder, and urological diseases. This is
By the way, that
very
is very, very,
unacceptable.
very true. Before this, my dad was a urologist
Oh, was he?
Kaiser.
Really?
And he said, before I even went to work for Kaiser, for Trimet, and he said, I know more Trimet drivers, male and female, than you'll ever know, more intimately than you'll ever know.
Wow.
And he said, when he heard that I was becoming a Trimet bus driver, he went out and bought me a $200 seat cushion with steel rods going through the back as well as the bottom. And he said, this is the only way to maintain any resemblance of kidney function over a long career.
I see. Interesting.
Driving out without a break, or as one
You have some.
No, go ahead.
driver said, driving while holding it causes stress. Driver
Yep.
stress is dangerous and causes accidents that are preventable. First Transit has established a system of driver feedback where drivers can file reports about problems they encounter, such as unsafe conditions. This is on its face a good policy. Unfortunately, it has become common practice that managers rewrite the service improvement process forms that drivers submit. The company takes action based on these edited versions, which are often nothing like what the driver submitted. As a result, the service does not, in fact,
just
improve.
again, look at the expressions of this board and the
Yeah.
general manager and the attorney. I mean,
Yeah.
if they're auditioning to try to impersonate the Sphinx, it would be a toss-up of who would win.
We also heard
It's not even a raised eyebrow.
Yeah, look at that look there. Look. Yeah, what? Now what?
testimony about paratransit service in Vancouver, Washington, and
all very
learned
news
that
to me.
C-Van does provide high-quality service. We were pleased to
Yeah,
hear that, and we
that's
believe
interesting that
TriMet
right across the river at C-Tran, they do it the exact opposite way from Trimet. It's all in-house.
can do so as well. We understand that TriMet is a huge operation with many moving parts, and until now it is possibly largely unaware of the truly terrible conditions at First Transit. We hope our report will spur a new reckoning on your part. Our report recommends the following. TriMet establish clear standards for paratransit service and holds First Transit accountable for meeting these standards. We recommend that TriMet encourage First Transit to negotiate in good faith with ATU 757 so that these problems can be resolved. We also point out that First Transit's contract with TriMet will expire within a year. At that time, if improvements have not been made, paratransit operations should be brought in-house as they are in Vancouver. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's
All right.
three of them there.
Let's move on to the next two. Cecil Prescott and Logan
not one
Bright.
follow-up question.
No, wait, not one.
Wills, is it?
Not one query.
No.
I will also.
Yeah, they didn't dare take her on. Okay, they didn't dare let her get into a conversation.
Not only that, there was a report done. I think it's almost 12 years old, which was with the union and the company at the time, that showed to bring the TriMet Lift program back in.
Yeah, right.
It would be more beneficial financially to TriMet and to raise the wages,
Right.
make them compensate exactly on the same par of these drivers as bus drivers. And if you ever, I used to know well, he still lives right near me. It was their union representative. By the way, they never, ever got a seat lift on the executive board of ATU.
They did not get a seat on the board of ATU?
No, they have I forgot what is it, a representative.
Don't they have an executive board member there or something?
But it's not a voting.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think I'm correct on that. And that was promised going back to John Hunt's days. And again, broken promises are on both sides, the union and management.
Well, yeah, it's just too bad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just too bad that the workers have to suffer this abuse. Because the institutional failure of Trimet and the union, I'll agree with that. You know, the union has just become another institution, really.
And Dennis, who was that representative, I can't think of his last name, for essentially, my understanding with him and walking in the park as we attended our dog's business, he said he essentially had to resign because that was a platform that he ran on, that they would have a seat at the executive table.
I see. That's interesting.
And, you know, his credibility, and he was promised that.
Right.
And you know,
well, promises,
once it was done was, who are you?
Yeah. Promises, verbal promises are nothing.
Go ahead.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I like that. I'm Cecil Prescott, and I also sat with the Workers' Rights Board, and I just want to highlight some things that my colleagues shared with you. I think one thing that's important for all of us to realize is that a society, a company, a people, we're best measured by how we treat those who are most vulnerable. One thing that I think we all realize is that we all are getting older, and that if we are fortunate, we will have the opportunity to have the assistance of others. One thing that we've noticed, that I've noticed during our testimony, one was the tremendous work that the drivers are doing. The dedication and the commitment they have is something to celebrate. And I think that what we, as part of the public and you as TriMet, could do is continue to see how your continued support can help meet the needs that these drivers face. At the testimony in May, we heard the testimonies of not only drivers but also of those who used the service. And I think I was flabbergasted by some of the things I heard, and you heard some of those and you can see those in the report. But the fact that people who serve the most vulnerable people in our society are forced to wear adult diapers was startling to me. The fact that there was a lack of adequate cleaning supplies was startling to me. And the fact that those who rely on the service are often left wondering when their rides will arrive, and are frightened by the necessity to either shorten their appointment with their doctors because they don't want to be left stranded. One person who testified, Nico Siraz, said, those who depend on it are forced to live small lives. I think part of the challenge that we face is to widen the circle.
Insight right there.
Yeah, no, everything he says is correct, and what he's describing is the general failure of the society, though. Okay, it becomes clear and crystallized at this level where you can see it. But this is the general malaise of the society. You know, the people that need the help the most are basically criminalized, and they really are. Okay, I mean, this isn't a criminal operation, but their needs are completely not considered in the bigger structure.
I mean, I've had a lot of personal friends, some who have passed on due to their wheelchair infirmants, who just told me about horror stories of waiting in the weather for a ride.
Yeah. It's unbelievable.
And calling frantically, where are you?
I know, it's horrible, and it's a real condemnation of the society. And of course, it's a condemnation of the what I call the public transportation industrial complex, which I think is one of the worst inhumane complexes in the country. The only one worse is the military, of course, which kills people. Oh, the pharmaceutical, you know, all these different industrial complexes are basically living off the population, and that includes this. Okay, same thing.
That those who
I love that
depend
phrase,
on
small lives.
Yeah, well, he's right. They are. They're last on the agenda.
drivers and the service, that their lives might be opened and that their lives might be widened. And so I urge you to continue to look and review your contract with First Transit to see how you might continue to serve the drivers who do tremendous work, and also to see how we
You know, the phrase
seek
he needed
live.
the word he needed to substitute for contract would be your conscience.
Yeah, right.
But they have no conscience.
No, they're just part of this complex, and they don't, you know, they're interacting only with the executives of the agency. These board members don't actually interact with either drivers or riders. They only interact with executives, so they're not able to see the other perspective here. And these testimonies, they're great. People like me and you can appreciate them for what they are, these excellent testimonies that are trying to illustrate to these people what the problem is. But we know they don't care about these testimonies. Are just they don't do anything about it. You know, they don't engage them in conversation. There's no actions for the general manager. You know, they just listen to you and then next. You know what I mean? Which means they don't give a fuck.
Your 3 minutes is up. Get out of here.
Right, that's right.
And I have known many Lyft drivers, and I have told them, I said, you are working 3 times as hard as most bus drivers in a day. I said,
Oh, that job is much worse as far as I'm concerned.
and I just said, why don't you just come over and drive a bus?
Because they don't hire all of them. That's why. Trimet Big Bus doesn't hire a lot of those people. I don't know why, but that's why it all has to be in-house and all one job classification. You know, people should be able to move around in those classifications. But that doesn't, you know, that's your management labor there. You know what I mean? Management's against labor, and so they maintain this control through these type of techniques, and it really is it's predatory behavior. That's what it is. Let's call it what it is.
And support those who are most vulnerable in our society. Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course, this country doesn't follow that at all. The most vulnerable in our society are just left to rot. Basically, that's where they are. They're lying on the streets. You know.
And again, look at every one of these board of directors and the CEO and the attorney expressions.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it looks like Kelsey has a little smile on his face. I mean, yeah, he does have a little smile. It's terrible.
Oh yeah, well, I don't know what he's smiling about.
I know, but the
only thing he's probably smiling about is, thank God his 3 minutes are up.
Good morning, Logan
by the
Gillis
way,
from Portland.
again, not one follow-up question.
No, nothing. I mean, that was a very powerful testimony. He was really hitting the problem. He had the essence of the problem in his speech, and they don't, nothing. You see, this is really a process of no use. There's no use to this process when they're not engaging at all.
And
Not an
Chief Policy
engaging
Advisor.
process.
No, they just give you, and even in the beginning he says, we are required by law to give you 3 minutes. So, I mean, he admits that this isn't something they want to do. You know, they really do have a disdain for the public. You really have to understand this to really understand what's going on in society. These technocracies view the public as the enemy. Okay, I'm not making this up. I'm serious. They view the public as something that you have to keep away from what they're doing, and they have a real disdain for the general public. They're part of that whole elite structure. Okay, all these different people are making all these great salaries, maintaining a system of injustice, and they all have a stake in it. That's how the whole goddamn world runs, really. You know, the elite employ all these various agents to make sure everything stays the same, and everybody's complicit in this little game.
State Senator Michael Dembrow. He has 2 different work group meetings in Salem today, so asked me to come.
That's too bad. United States a senator, Oregon senator would have been nice here, but instead he sent this guy.
And share his remarks, so please imagine that I'm a little bit older, quite a bit thinner, and have a beard. Dear Trimet board members, I need to be in Salem today, and so unfortunately can't be with you in person to present these remarks, but I want to communicate to you my strong concern about the problems that paratransit professionals and passengers are experiencing here in the metro region. I believe that Trimet needs to take this situation firmly in hand and exercise its responsibility over the way that services are delivered to people with disabilities in this region. I was a member of the Workers' Rights Board that heard testimony on May 17th. We heard deeply felt and very troubling testimony from workers and passengers detailing the serious problems that riders and drivers encounter with First Transit on a regular basis. According to testimony from Shirley Block, president of ATU 757, when she attempts to involve Trimet in addressing these problems, Trimet tells her that First Transit is responsible.
I'm sure that's true. What he just said is true. They won't. They're not going to talk. That's why they have First Transit there. That's why they have Regroup there, so that they can just say that's not our responsibility. This is how the government works. You see, it's criminal that's allowed to exist like that, but that's the way it is.
If so, that is not acceptable. Trimet is, of course, responsible for the quality of the work and the actions taken by its contractors. It is Trimet's responsibility, not First Transit's, to define standards for paratransit service that actually meets the needs of disabled people. Those standards must be transparent to the...
It's another thing to actually enforce.
Yes, right. That's right, exactly.
Public and First Transit must be assessed on a regular basis to make sure that those standards are being met. Ideally, this would be done in partnership with ATU and with the paratransit rider community. If First Transit cannot meet those standards, then their contract should not be renewed. We heard at the hearing that driver treatment and rider experience was much better when the Lyft program was held in-house by Trimet, as it continues to be in Clark County. If First Transit cannot guarantee that level of performance, then the operation should return in-house. One of the core principles of public contracting is that public agencies are supposed to only be contracting out when the result is equal or superior service. They are not supposed to be contracting out just to save money by paying workers less and degrading their working conditions. Certainly, they are not intended to result in service that creates unacceptable...
meets those standards.
What's that?
Contracting out to save money.
Yeah.
I mean,
burdens for the vulnerable.
If anything, they met at least the negative side.
Yes, that's right.
The
Exactly.
downside of it.
Yeah.
populations that rely on them. It may be that the 2019 legislature needs to articulate this principle more clearly in statute. I would hope that statutory direction to hold to this standard would not be necessary for a public agency like Trimet. But if you feel that you need more explicit direction along these lines, I'll be happy to work with you to help craft such legislation. In closing, I just want to say that what makes this issue so distressing for me is the particular population that we're talking about. I have seen again and again the way that populations that are deemed lower in value tend to be given services that are lower in value.
There you go. Right. That's
I am
right.
truly confident that Trimet does not think of Oregonians with disabilities in this way, but it is inevitably a perception that becomes internalized in the minds of those being treated this way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that's, yeah. Okay.
Good comments.
Any comment you have about that? I already made my comment.
Yeah, it's well said.
Yeah.
And again, not one comment from this board.
No. No.
And Jared Franz
You
with
know,
ATU
Yeah.
757 and Esmeralda Flores with Central Cultural.
Good morning, Trimet board members. My name is Jared Franz, and I'm the policy coordinator for Amalgamated.
Jared's been around a long time. I used to follow him when he was at Opal doing the budget analysis. He did some great work at Opal. I don't know. Are you familiar with this guy?
I met with him when he first came on board at the union office. Presented some ideas for with the new attorney. I think her name was Krista, and him.
Yeah.
And Shirley was there of a class action suit involving the attorneys from that you used down from California.
Oh, okay. Joel Young.
And they were willing to take it on, not only to sue Trimet, but Siemens
Oh, really?
or the ergonomic, and him, all three of them in that room just said, nope, can't get involved, won't get involved.
Really? He said that?
Yep.
Why can't they get involved? Did they give you an explanation?
I never got an explanation from Shirley or the attorney or them. I said, I have 5 boxes, documents going back 20 years of malfeasance before even the Tide 5s were put into production. Because I talked to the ergonomic guy in New York who flew out to Sacramento, and he wrote a report, which I tried to get 5 times via the union, via the Freedom of Information Act, and guess what?
What?
We kept widening or narrowing what we were doing, and Trimet said, never happened. I said, really? I said, I talked to the guy who you paid to fly out and do this report. And I just essentially dropped it, and unfortunately, with the Supreme Court rulings in the Walmart case and the current one, class actions for workers
Yep.
are almost going to be the thing of the past.
Yeah, no, the workers' rights are pretty much, well, yeah.
And
it's over, man.
you know, I mean, this man is personally nice as far as picking his. He works the system.
He does. Well, I know him from Opal, and when he was with Opal, I thought he was excellent. I don't know him from.
And Jared and I just said, you keep playing nice. The other side is not playing nice. And I grew up back east where politics you had a set of brass knuckles.
Yeah. Yeah.
This union does not know how to do that.
Well, they did. I mean, go back a few years when they were picketing and stuff. That's changed now. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know what to say about the union. I don't know. From my point of view, all things considered, I would have to say that it's been a reasonable job, okay? All things considered.
How about this? Better than nothing.
Well, better than no union for sure.
That's for sure.
But they're battling this neoliberal agenda to destroy unions. Don't forget. So I mean, unions are pretty much done in this country right now, and the ATU is going to have some big trouble going forward because of that ruling. People are going to stop paying dues. I'm sure Trimet will encourage them to stop paying dues, and eventually they'll get what they want, which is a completely powerless union. I mean, even in the last contract, I mean, they held out and got what they got. You know, McFarland wanted more, but he was out the door, and so he had to give in. So I don't know. I think sometimes some people are a little too hard on them, if you want my opinion. Of course, I'll get a lot of shit for saying that, but everybody gets...
Go ahead and roll it. We've digressed here.
Transit Union 757. It's good to see so many new faces on the board, and hello to President Warner and Travis Stovall, the two senior members of the board who've known me for a long time.
He goes way back.
I know. I feel like I'm ready to join. Does that include an AARP membership?
Yeah.
I can help you on that.
We've been at this for a really long time, but I think the two of you especially are going to be happy to know that I'm here to invite Trimet to a partnership on this issue. I mean, you've heard the comments already from other members who participated in the Workers' Rights Board. I'm not going to try to rehash or reiterate that. I'm just here to make it clear that it doesn't have to be this way. And I say that because ATU 757 represents paratransit workers throughout the state of Oregon, as well as Southern Washington. And because we're a professional organization that represents professional drivers, we have professional conferences every quarter. Our quarterly paratransit conference just wrapped up a few weeks ago, in fact, and we're planning another one in October. And so we get all the different perspectives from all the different paratransit riders in the state and in Southern Washington. And I'm here to tell you that things are uniquely bad in Portland. I know that First Transit probably...
almost from the get-go.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking 10 years.
Yeah, well, since McFarland...
I mean, he's absolutely correct that this has been going on for a long time.
Well, since McFarland's come in, that's for sure.
Has already activated their PR department. I hope that you will listen to them and engage with them while also understanding what the truth of the matter is. I have rider manifests, driver manifests that I'm happy to present to you to document that these problems are still going on. First Transit has a history of...
It would be interesting to see whether this board has the power, and I'm sure they do, to ask someone from First Transit to testify before them and query and have them answer what's going on.
Yeah.
And
anti-worker behavior.
And and give that person more than 3 minutes.
In fact, we almost play a game in the office at ATU about who's striking against First Group this week. There have been strikes in Seattle recently, several strikes in Southern California. Here in Oregon, First Student, which is a sister organization of First Transit, lost their contract in Corvallis because of terrible service. First Transit also recently lost a contract in Yamhill County because of terrible service. Here in the Portland region, we have been fighting for 2 years to get a new contract signed and haven't made meaningful progress. What's worse is that there's inconsistent service requirements, benefits, and pay between the 3 different regions, which means paratransit drivers here in Washington County, which we refer to as Region 2, have different pay, benefits, and work conditions as paratransit drivers.
That's pretty astounding, really, when you think about it, that the different regions have different pay and benefits within the city, within the Trimet district.
This is not unusual. This has been a strategy of management to split the regions up. This is not only in the LIVE program, believe it or not, if you have Kaiser, and I was chatting last week when I was in there to the gal that was doing my intake, and I said, how are things going with the union? Because I know a couple people involved with it. She says, we have lots of different unions. The management has successfully divided us, and we're no longer be able to bargain as one. And let alone, she told me something just along this line. She said, if I am at Interstate doing intake work, like you have people who check in, and I decide I want to go out to Sunnyside and bid and do that work out there, same job, my seniority does not carry over.
Yeah.
And I just said, and she's been with Kaiser 15 years, so she's stuck, to stay within that area, even though she has now moved and lives closer to Sunnyside. Her shifts would be she would go to the bottom.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So this is a slow, deliberate picking away at union solidarity that's been going on for a long, long time.
Amen.